Hey everybody, James with Love My Pups, My Breeder Supply. Subscribe to us please, we'd really appreciate that. We'll bring you more of these videos. Okay, so this is about ancestry, whether you have a purebred dog. If you get a report back and it's not 100% purebred, what does it mean? I had a customer the other day who called me up, not one of my customers sold a dog to, but somebody who was asking about, they'd got an NBOC test back for their dog and they were concerned because it said that their dog was 88% French Bulldog and 12% something else. And it's like, what should I do? You know, the breeder didn't tell me about this. So, I thought, okay, let's do a video on this. So, and by the way, that person I don't think is in trouble, and we're going to explain why in this video. So I think there's, best I know, to go get DNA tests. I mean, you can get DNA tests that are to do with coat color from places like UC Davis, animal genetics that I really like, VetGen, who appears to take a long time to get results. But anyway, all of those things, they're all to do with things like coat color and not to do with ancestry of your dog. If you go to the AKC and you do a DNA test with them, which costs, by the way, $40, that is just a parentage test that shows you whether the offspring of a puppy, can have come from the mum and the dad that are on the form. So it's got nothing to do with health, got nothing to do with the quality of the dog, it's got nothing to do with it's whether it's a French Bulldog or some other dog. So that doesn't help you either. But the two places that I know of that do this are NBOC and Wisdom Panel. So those are the two that I'm aware of. Look, I could well be more of them out there than that, especially in other parts of the world. So if you know of other places, sure, drop us a line and we'll include that. But anyway, those are the two that I know of. So then they do a test, and you can have a number of tests done, but what they'll do is they'll give you results back. And what you want to see, hopefully, is that your dog is 100% whatever, French Bulldog in this case. All right. But his results came back that the dog was 88% French Bulldog, and it was 12% something else. So that's where the concern came. So the question is, what the heck does that mean? How can that be? So the first thing is how the heck are people like NBOC doing these tests and coming back with these results? So the answer to that is not bitching about NBOC or anything, because what they do is this. They have a genetic profile that they say is typical of a French Bulldog. They've tested maybe 1,000 dogs and come up with the whole genetic panel for those dogs and say, here's the things that we see common in those dogs. And anything that matches up to that, we're saying it's 100% French Bulldog. Or any other dog, whatever that dog is. Right. If they see some dissimilarities between the standard mix they have and your dog, then they report that back as some percentage of different genes in these particular places that don't match up. So then they say this dog doesn't appear to be 100% French Bulldog. So what does that mean? Well, the answer is this. Look, if their genetic profile is taken from a bunch of dogs and they aren't all French Bulldogs, so there can be other dogs that come, especially of European, Russian, East Bloc heritage, that they haven't done as much testing on, and those dogs likely would come back as not being 100% French Bulldog. NBOC says specifically, if your dog comes back as not being purebred, that does not mean that your dog isn't purebred. What it means is it doesn't match up the profile that we have on hand that we use. And what they suggest that you then do is you do a parentage with the AKC to verify that you've got what you're supposed to have, and that's a good answer. So I think the first thing to remember is just because a dog doesn't come back 100% does not mean that your dog is not a purebred dog. That's the first thing. But it certainly would maybe ask a few questions. So now we're going to talk about what the AKC does. When you get a report back from the AKC, and I've done a whole video on this, you get a letter back, a piece of paper back, that has got a series of boxes with letters in it. And I may have this wrong because I haven't looked at it in a long time, but there's about 10 of them. and it might have a C and a D and an E and an A and an A and a B and a C and an A. Who knows? All right. So what the heck does that mean? What does that mean? It's got nothing to do with coat color. It's got nothing to do with health of the dog. It's nothing to do with structure of the dog. It's just some particular markers that they took, and it gives them a code for that dog. So then if you look at the parents of this dog, so here's the female, and I'm just going to do 4 of them. There might be 10 of them. And here's the male. And again, I've done a whole video on this, so I don't want to go into this in any great detail, but I just want to get this across here. This has letters in it as well, and we're just going to put some letters in here. Do some thinking here. All right. What the heck are we looking at here? The answer to this is, if you look at these profiles for the puppy up top, this is just from the DNA, from the AKC report. This is a parentage report, and the question is, can this puppy have come from those 2 dogs? And the answer is yes, it did. Or at least it's extremely likely that it did. Every single letter up here, you have to see that in one or both of the parents. So here's a C, there's a C, we're good. There's a D, there's a D, we're good. Here's an E, there's an E, we're good. There's an A, there's an A, we're good. Here's an A, there's an A. Here's a B, there's a B. Here's a C, there's a C in both, there's an A in both. That means that this dog here apparently could have come from those. An example of something that would throw up a red flag is we'll make that an F. If we make that an F, there is not an F in this profile. That dog cannot have come from either of those parents. Cannot come from either of them. So that would be that is something seriously wrong, and you've got to go back and probably do a retest or ask some questions. So that's the point of that. I just want to get that across. So the AKC part is a parentage thing. And if you have a problem where you think something's wrong, and you've done an MBOC test or a wisdom panel, and you come back with a dog that's something significantly less than 100%, then the question is, do you have the dog that you're supposed to have? I know about French Bulldogs. You can see a French Bulldog that doesn't have any papers, and you can look at that dog and you can say, that is a French Bulldog. I know that's a French Bulldog. It looks Frenchy like crazy. It's Frenchy. And you'll see some Frenchies like, I don't know about that. It looks like a bit Bostonish, it's got longer legs, it's got a bit of a tail on it. There's some things like that then would make you wonder about what the heck's going on. The way to find out is to go get an AKC parentage done. So why does the AKC do this? Well, they require, if you import a dog from overseas, or you have a stud, what's called a frequently used stud, more than 3 times in 1 year or 7 times in a lifetime, you have to go send off a DNA swab and spend $40. And they put that on file, and they'll every now and then check things, and if something comes up wrong, somebody's done something wrong, and there's a problem where all of the puppies that stand in front of that particular stud or female might lose their AKC status. Be a bad day. Never happened to me. Don't ever want it to happen to me. Be a bad day. So why would that happen? Well, it could be because somebody's mucking around, has cheated somewhere down the line and done what you call hanging papers, where you've cheated. I don't quite know how you hang papers, never have done it, never will do it, but you can go find out about that if you want to. But there's ways supposedly that you can cheat on this. I suspect that if a person tries to cheat, they'll trip up at some point and they'll get themselves in a really bad situation. So don't even think about doing this. I think that the idea that somebody would try to get a non-AKC dog AKC status by cheating is a very bad thing to do. Hugely bad for a customer who then 2-3 generations down the road gets their AKC status yanked for that dog. That would be a horrible day. There's another reason. Somebody bred a dog and the wrong stud dog got involved. They messed up, and that would cause that to be wrong. It could still be a French Bulldog, but it would trip up. And of course, another one is the dog got bred by two males, one day and one another day, and maybe the owner didn't know about that, and because of that, things get messed up. But let's now talk about if you did, well, remember this. and all of you purists out there, and I don't want to knock you too hard, but you'll say things like, oh, I had one the other day. Now, we had a Merle puppy, and somebody said, oh, you're cheating, you're lying. That dog was bred to an Australian miniature or something. It's like, no, baloney, it was not. It's like, that is an AKC dog with AKC papers, with AKC in that DNA. The stud dog Picasso's had lots and lots of puppies. His DNA is on file. If we were cheating, I would have my titties in a ringer. So I know that that's not the case. But how the hell does this happen? Well, remember that all dogs out there, even your most purest bred, 100% French Bulldog, they all have a common ancestor. They all came from wild dogs, and they all, you call them purebred, and of course, after many generations they are, and we're going to go over that, but they're not really purebred. If you go back in their ancestry, they did come from other dogs. And it's interesting, if you let loose a bunch of dogs in the wild, or they go to some impoverished place, like, maybe Bangladesh, where there's a lot of dogs running around scavenging. They're not anybody's dogs, but they breed amongst themselves. They're basically wild dogs. They all start to look the same. They all have the same structure, the same size, generally the same coloring. We call it a Heinz 57 dog. When you get a lot of Heinz 57 that are inbreeding, they all look like a common dog. So that's what they go back to. And the reason for that is they all have common heritage, common DNA. It all gets jumbled together and you produce a Heinz 57 dog. So let's talk about how this actually happens. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put together two dogs. And this first dog we're going to call that a red dog. And the second dog, I'll cut a pen out here, we're going to call a blue dog. That's a purebred blue dog and a purebred red dog. And they have a puppy. And what do they produce? Well, they produce a dog that is, maybe you can guess what it's going to be. It's half a red dog and it's half a blue dog. It has 50% of each parent. If you did an en-bark test, that's what it would come back with, you'd hope. All right. And by the way, you cannot do Punnett squares on this because this is not a single gene we're talking about here. We're talking about 20, 30,000 genes that all muddle together. And it gets half of those genes on average from that, well, not on average, it gets half from this parent, half from that parent. They all jumble together and it produces this Heinz 57 dog. All right. So now we take the Heinz 57 dog and we're going to breed the Heinz 57 dog back to another purebred red dog. What do we get? So in this next generation, the second generation, we get a dog that is 3/4, 75% red and 25% blue. So there it is. So that now is a 25% not red dog. All right, now we take this dog here and we breed that dog back again to another purebred red dog. So here we do that. And what do we get? Whoops, sorry. I'm messing up with my colors. All right, since we've done circles here. So now we're breeding this dog back to a red dog, purebred red dog. What do we get? And we get, the right color pen here, we get a dog that is 12.5% blue dog, and that's what that person had. So you can see after first, second, third generation, we have a dog that is getting to be pretty damn pure. All right, let's do it again. Take another red dog, breed those together, what do we get? So now we get a dog that is, oh, that should be blue there, sorry about that. 6.25%, 6.25%, not pure. Do it again. What do we get? So now we go back to another red dog. We keep on doing this. And what do we get? Get the right pen here. Is that the right pen? Yeah, the right pen. So now we're really getting down to just a little smidgen of blue. 3.5 is 3 1/8%. So you can see what goes on here. We can keep on doing this. So this is the fourth generation. So that's the third generation. This is the fourth generation. Basically, by the time you've got, so the next generation after that, so that's the first, second, third, sorry, I was wrong, fourth, fifth generation. Sixth generation, we're going to get back to about 1.5%. Seventh generation, we're going to get back to about 0.75%. Eighth generation, we're going to get back to about 3/8, less than 0.5%. All intents and purposes, that's near a purebred dog. So look, it takes a while to get back to 8 generations. I mean, it might take you, it might take you 10 years, 15 years of breeding to do that. But the point here is that's how new breeds come about. New breeds do come about because people are repeatedly breeding back what they want to get these purebred dogs. Is a dog that's less than 1% a purebred dog? Yeah, I think it is. Look, is it recognized by the AKC? Completely different thing. It's not what we're talking about. The AKC, they've got to look at these things. They have board meetings. They look at DNA of various different dogs. And then all of a sudden, you've got 2 different kinds of Norwich and Norfolk dogs, one with a floppy ear and one without. That's how that stuff happens. But the point here is, just remember that all of these dogs did have a common ancestor. And certainly one can get to a point where you've taken 2 unrelated dogs and produced some kind of new purebred dog at some point down the road. So so what you do here is, by the way, if you were doing this, and it's not the kind of thing we do, and it's not the kind of, I mean, people are doing this, and they're doing this with things like designer dogs that aren't AKC, where they specifically take a line of a particular trait they want, which is right here. This is the dog they got. These are the dogs that are purebred dogs. And they then introduce a different thing that has something different about it. Maybe a longer nose, got long hair, I don't know what it is, but something they want to then get into this line, and that's how you do it. You got to be careful here. You've got to have a number of these dogs. You don't want to be inbreeding and line breeding dogs. You don't want to put yeah, you can do it, but the point here, the point I want to get across is that none of these dogs, just to wrap this up, none of these dogs are potentially 100% pure. They've all got a little smidgen of something that's not French Bulldog. If you get an embark test that comes back that has a percentage that's something around 10-15%, go do a parentage DNA test to make sure the 2 parents that are purported to be the parents of this puppy are in fact the parents. That is a done deal. You can do that categorically and make sure that is correct. But there is no way that if an embark test comes back and shows it has a small percentage of something else, that you can ever find out anything about that other than the fact if it looks like the dog it should be and it comes back the right DNA parentage from the AKC, you're fine. You're good. You're good to go. That's it. There we go. Hope that makes sense. Please subscribe to us. Go to My Breeder Supply. We have fantastic products that we use every day. Some of these things are patented by us. They will make your life easier. They'll have more successful litters, I guarantee it. And we're always here to help anybody with any questions, even if you're not using our studs or you're not using our products. If we can help, get a hold of us. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.